Welcome to Global Dispatches, a podcast about foreign policy and world affairs. I'm your host, Mark Leon Goldberg, editor of UN Dispatch. And in this show, we discuss topical global issues, have conversations with foreign affairs thought leaders and newsmakers, and give you the context you need to understand the world today. Go to globaldispatchespodcast.com to learn more. And now on with the show. My guest today, Sunitha Krishnan, literally rescues girls from sex slavery. She is the founder of the Indian NGO Prajwala, which both physically removes girls from sexual bondage and provides social, medical, and psychological support for their rehabilitation. She's been beaten, she's been jailed, but nevertheless, Sunitha Krishnan persists. And as she tells me in our conversation, what motivates her in this dangerous work is anger. And that anger stems from her own experience with sexual assault at the age of 15 when she was victim of a gang rape. I met Sunitha Krishnan in June in Yerevan, Armenia, where she was being recognized for her heroic work by the Aurora Humanitarian Initiative. She was one of 3 finalists for the 2018 Aurora Prize for Awakening Humanity, and though she did not end up winning that award, it went to a Rohingya human rights lawyer named Kyaw Hla Aung. Her work in the slums of India gained wider attention through this recognition. As you'll see from this interview, Sunitha Krishnan is a powerhouse. You will leave this conversation moved and hopefully inspired, and I will post a link to Prajwala on globaldispatchespodcast.com. And as always, if you'd like to get in touch with me, if you have suggestions of people I should interview, topics I should cover, or just want to let me know what's on your mind, please send me an email, and you can do so using the contact button on the homepage. Now here is my conversation with Sunitha Krishnan from Yerevan, Armenia.
I think, first of all, sex trafficking is a global problem. It's not just an Indian problem. I'm not sure which country has escaped the clutches of sex trafficking. At least recorded history shows around 130 countries do have this problem in small or big measure. And India, maybe because of its population, maybe because of the size of the country, has a larger number of people who are sex trafficked. The official estimates is around 2 to 3 million people. But as an activist and practitioner, I know that hardly 7% get ever rescued. And for every one single reported case, there would be at least around 30 unreported cases. So I would anyway estimate it between 14 to 16 million.
The official estimate is a drastic undercount.
It would be anywhere in the world because this problem is such a clandestine problem. Even officially, it would be very difficult to actually, unravel the entire extent and magnitude of the problem, because the significant and unique feature of the crime itself, that it's a clandestine crime. But I think what is very important to understand about this crime in India is the fact that, and not just India, many other countries also have the same problem, is that it is not really understood as an organized crime. It's more understood as a moral crime, and something related to kind of vulnerable situations in terms of people are poor, so they are getting trafficked, that kind of thing. But not understanding that there is another group of people who are spotting this vulnerability and, they're tapping this vulnerability and trapping this vulnerability for purposes of exploitation. So that aspect of conspiracy of several people is something that people want to ignore. Maybe because of ignorance, but I suspect not so much of ignorance, but as a mindful decision to actually not acknowledge this whole network, because then it means also to question your own role in the network, because there's a whole lot of people who live on this crime.
It's organized crime is what you're saying. It's
whether
mob.
you see a mafia, you may not see a mafia. It's loosely networked kind of situation. But at the same time, practitioners like me who are actually involved in removing people from the world of exploitation can see and understand the network, because we feel it when we remove somebody from the place of exploitation. And what prima facie looks like, oh, this poor girl in this brothel, suddenly in 48 hours time, she seems to be having a lot of guardians. There are hundreds of people standing in the court for her. So there are lawyers representing her, and there are people, spending a lot of money and on her behalf, and claiming that she's their daughter or sister or wife or things like that. And that's when you start seeing the network. So what happens is, as the days goes, in terms of post-rescue situation, so from the point of removal, every day you can see the crime unfolding, because suddenly you understand it in no uncertain terms. There's another group of people working to somehow pull this girl out of my clutches. So there are people intimidating me, people who are threatening me, people who are sending feelers and messages through different sources to this girl to go hostile in the court, not to speak in the court, and not to speak to us. So that is how you understand the face of the crime, which the larger world ignores.
And it's interesting that you describe this challenge through the framework of organized crime. Because that helps me understand why you personally have been attacked so many times over the years by these criminal networks that you're seeking to expose. How far and wide reaching do these criminal networks go? And sort of how have you dealt with the threats on your own personal safety as you expose these networks and try to rescue people from them?
I think these criminal networks are very well rooted in the very fabric of the society. So, if I have to say what is a manifestation of their intimidation to me, from being physically assaulted myself, I have had my entire setup being, I've been asked to evict, meaning I've been asked to leave, lock, stock and barrels, just get out of our place, meaning that's the amount of pressure they can put in. But I have also seen it operating in different ways. Suddenly you have a lot of income tax raids on your offices, and
income tax
raids, and then you have all kinds of people writing letters about you to the ministry, and everywhere you have letters going saying that she's a fraud, she's thing. Right now, just a day before I left to Armenia, to Yerevan for the Aurora's, the entire prize week. Just a day before that, apparently somebody has written a very, very lengthy, long complaint against me to the chief minister, and an inquiry has been thing. And so there is so many people who don't want you to be there, and they're constantly trying to do it. And you see it in multiple ways, the way they want to wipe you out in terms of your staff are beaten up in the corridors of the court, and you can't call them beaten out, because you can't even say that they were beaten up, because they might be just walking and somebody will just come and push them off and then say sorry.
I mean, to what extent is this the challenge of uncovering these networks and ending trafficking made more difficult, because you're not just trying to stop a crime, but you're trying to fight sort of patriarchy?
I think, I've always said this in all my speeches, is that my challenge is not the crime networks. My challenge is not the criminal networks, because I can predict them. Because I know they will beat me up. And I understand why. Because, see, when I remove a girl from a place of exploitation, I'm actually destroying their livelihood. Meaning, I'm actually, making a dent in their economics, because I know my girl will be raped 40 times a day which means there are 40 men who are paying for her body, which means that much of income has been, taken away from you, and, and you will do everything under your, humanly possible for you to somehow get back your income. So I understand why the criminal syndicate behave that way, and I have all my sympathies for them. I don't empathize with them, but my sympathies are there for the lost income, and I will continue to destroy their income. And that's my promise to them. But what I cannot handle, and what I find it really very challenging, is the social attitude and the attitude of the larger society. This is something predictable, and this is something justifiable for me. But this is not, because, after so much of trouble of, I don't know whether you can even, actually visualize a rescue. When you say a rescue in an Indian brothel, you're saying that every step of your inside the brothel, you're staking your life. You are going to be killed. You're asking to be killed, because the first thing that they switch off is the mains. And
the means? The electricity?
Electricity mains. So there's like pitch darkness, and you enter, suppose this is a room like this is too big a room for a brothel. There would be smaller cubicles, and every place will have false basements, false ceiling, roofs, walls, so suddenly you're touching and seeing the crevices where you can open to see if somebody is hidden inside. And in between that, somebody just stabs you and goes off. You can't do anything, because that is the situation inside. And you're focused on bringing out as many people outside, so it could be a false ceiling, where you're actually breaking the ceiling open and taking out people and things like this is what you do in a rescue operation. After all that, and if rescue is a small activity, a dramatic activity, a very seemingly heroic activity, the bigger heroism is in the rehabilitation program. So from the point of rescue to reintegration, it's a long journey for the victim and for a caregiver like me. So bringing her out of that rut, bringing her out of that hell, and making her understand that there is life beyond that tragedy is a huge world of challenges. After all that struggle that we do, when the society rejects this girl, you don't know what to do, because this is what you gave her, the hope. This is a world you can live back, you can start back life fresh, you can start a new life and everything. And then the world says, no, we don't want her back. Family says, we don't want her back. People will not give her employment because, oh my God, she's from that background, we will have other problems. So I think that,
that's like the ultimate challenge, is changing that sort of patriarchal attitude.
That is one of the many challenges that I have. The other challenges, of course, is breaking your head with the governments to take up this cause, because as a civil society organization, you have your limitations. You can't be doing it all, and the state doesn't want to take any responsibility, That apathy and inaction is another big challenge that when you go through.
So may I ask, you earlier mentioned the risks inherent in rescuing girls from a brothel, women from a brothel, and the personal risk to you that brings. What drives you to do that? And I know you have a powerful personal story about how you started your organization. Would you mind telling that to people who are unfamiliar with you and your background and how you started your organization and why you started your organization?
I think if you ask me why I started my organization, I would say anger drove me to it.
Anger?
Yes.
That could be a powerful motivating force for some.
Yeah, but anger started me, anger drives me, anger sustains me, anger continues to drive me to do what I'm doing. So anger is my all encompassing.
Is that sustainable over the long term?
It's only increased over the years.
The angrier you get, the harder you work.
Harder I work, and more I try to channelize it into a hope and sense of possibilities for many, because I was angry at the age of 15 for being victimized, for being a victim. As a survivor of gang rape, I was made to feel 1,000 times that I was responsible for what happened to me. I was excluded from my community. I was looked at as a person with loose morals and very bad character. And I was the most dishonorable thing on the earth for my family and community. That angered me, and that the sheer injustice of being accused of a crime that you never committed. And I think that anger is my triggering point for deciding, and this is going to be my mission in my life, that I'm going to be working for victims who are victims of sex crime. And then as I took further steps into my journey, I felt sex slavery is far more graver sex crime than the individual sex crimes that happen around you. And that's how I decided that I'm going to be working on sex trafficking and sex crimes, in my life. Very, very, deep sense of anguish, I say this, that over the period of time, the anger has not come down. The anger has only grown, because I don't see any change in the way the victims are treated today, and I don't see that the world has moved ahead.
It's not getting better.
It's not getting better.
Is it staying the same, or is it getting worse?
Neither the numbers are getting better in terms of the numbers of just growing, but also the age and profile of the victim is also coming down. And so in a country like India, I've had the most unfortunate experiences of knowing that an 8-month baby has been raped. So the anger grows as I get older. But I've been blessed to channelize what for somebody else would be a negative emotion. For me, is a very positive emotion. I think anger is something, if rightly channelized, can lead to the right actions, and that is what I've been able to do.
Do you know, are there any other sort of individuals who inspire you, who use that anger, who channel that anger in positive ways? Because this, to me, personally, it's interesting to hear that anger is like the sustaining force. It makes sense. But I'm wondering if there are any models you draw on for anyone else who's inspired you in order to channel their anger in positive ways.
I don't know. I haven't met anybody like that, or I've not been inspired by anybody. I've never compared myself to anybody else, or I've not been maybe lucky enough to find role models in the way. I have been my greatest sense of support for what I do. But then I can give you examples from history, people who have used anger. Mahatma Gandhi is one great example. I think his whole mission for freedom and liberty started when he was thrown out of a train while traveling with an English gentleman. And that anger of discrimination is what is supposed to have led him to think about, the fight for truth. And that's called satyagraha. Satyagraha is the fight for truth. So I think most human rights defenders across the world, I think, start from a sense of discontent and anger. For me, it was not less of discontent, but more of anger. But any situation, Mark, it is our choice. What we make of that situation.
So earlier you referenced that there was the spectrum of the kinds of interventions you do start with the rescue and sort of end with the rehabilitation. Could you like walk me through a specific example of an individual you rescued, and then tell me about her journey towards rehabilitation? Sort of make this real for people, if possible.
But before I make that real for people, let me just add on that my work doesn't start from rescue.
Okay.
It starts from prevention.
Okay.
So it's prevention, rescue, rehabilitation, reintegration, and then advocacy. So the entire cycle.
Yes,
of it.
yes.
So in prevention, we educate a lot of children of women in prostitution, because second generation prevention and intergenerational prevention becomes one of the most important things, because sometimes children of women in prostitution could be the first target for traffickers to target. They're the first potential victims for trafficking. So preventing at that level itself makes a thing. So we run a lot of learning centers with over 9,600 children in those learning center. Also, we engage with the community. We awaken the community to understand the dangers of trafficking, and actually build what is called as community vigilant groups, which is like regulating community groups who are looking and checking out for danger signs around trafficking. Because across the world, if you understand, especially sex trafficking, you will know that it doesn't happen through a stranger. So it happens through known people. They are the first spotters. So, and then the chain starts. So, making the community alert about those first spotters and making them be vigilant. But also, one of our major engagement is with men and boys. So, working with men and boys is one of our biggest engagement in prevention. And because if we believe that if demand is addressed, automatically the supply will come down, and the traffickers and the criminal networks who are in between trying to spot this, to cater to this, have no role to play, because and then they have to leave this thing, because there's no demand for children or young girls for paid sex with them. That is what we do before, but obviously we don't do a good job. That's why we are still into rescue.
It's a monumental task.
It is.
You're talking about changing attitudes.
Yeah. So long way to go before we actually can stop our prevention interventions. Rescue is the ultimate scavenging job. It's the
ultimate scavenging job. Huh.
So it's like cleaning up all the dirty act of the world, and the entire start of the rescue, I've already told you, it starts with information. It also is a very specialized operation in terms of getting the information, validating the information, ensuring that the information is right, and then working with the police to take that information and do the operation and things like that. But post-rescue, say it's a 15-year-old girl, and who was sold at the age of 10. So here is somebody who has already been in a brothel for 5 years. So at the rate of 40 people a day, she's slept with that many thousands of people, over a period of this many years. So what is the kind of person you get in your hand? Here's a person who is completely hostile to you. Person who has actually normalized the experience of being exploited. A person who has got 100 kinds of diseases in her body. Sexually transmitted infections, reproductive tract infection, traumatic brain injuries, all kinds of health ailments, including HIV/AIDS. Here is a person who could be a substance abuser, an alcoholic, drug addict, And here's also a person who believes that getting raped is all right now. This is a person you're getting in your hand. So any intervention on their behalf has to be first psychologically healing, and then move on to be physically empowering and socially and economically empowering, and then moving on to restoration of their identity to dignity. So any victim of this kind, this 15-year-old, will go through first a whole lot of preliminary first responses that needs to be given, like healthcare, and trauma care and things like that. So sometimes it takes a month and a half to provide all these basic things, because there's a whole lot of diseases, and especially if suppose a person is a substance abuser or alcoholic, you need to detoxify her and de-addict her. Till that time, she's not even willing to talk to you. So that itself is thing. And in this space, this person is prone to be self-harming, and she can harm others. So here is a person who might attempt suicide, and by mistake the suicide works out, then you're done. Then you're answerable to 100 other people outside. And everybody is watching you outside, right? Yeah. So at one end the traffickers are watching you, another end the society is watching you to fail. So there's a whole world which wants you to fail. So you are on the edge, inside, you're on the edge outside. And so by the time you bring her out of all these traumatic conditions of her mind, and it takes between 1 month to any number of months for a person to acknowledge that she's a victim. So your work will start only when she starts acknowledging that I'm a victim, I need help. If she's going to be repeatedly telling you that I don't need your help.
Yeah. And I just keep thinking, you're talking about kids.
Yeah.
And I mean, these are not like adults that even under the best of circumstances would have the ability to process this, but these are children. It's
very difficult for adults or for children to process it. In children, it's much more difficult, because most of the time children are kept in actually good conditions, given a lot of, nice things and all that. So children are bribed in multiple ways. So you don't know, they are more confused than ever, what is right and what is not right. And then slowly when they come out of that sense of that whole rut of feeling, normalized, and they actually start understanding that was not normal and that was an exploitation that they were subjected to, that's when the actual psychosocial interventions would start, when the person understands that she's a victim and she needs help. So then specialized care is provided to her, like psychiatric services or counseling or group therapy and individual therapy, which moves on to then age appropriate interventions. So if it is a child, then maybe the child likes to go for education. Then she is molded in that way. If it's an adult, then it'll be maybe going towards finding some livelihood training and things like that. In between this, we need to kind of restore their life skills, because one of the biggest damages of trafficking is that you completely you're removed from all the social skills that you had before. So you are given a whole set of new set of behavior patterns. So if we are whether you or me, in our own different world settings that we come from, if we are taught in a way that this is the right way to sit and right way to stand, in a brothel you're taught differently. So if as a woman I'm taught to keep my legs closed and sit in what do you say, the right manner. And I don't know the right English word for it, but then you're not taught to keep your legs wide open but in a brothel this is what you're asked to do. You sit here, keep your legs wide open. So you do develop a lot of body mannerism and your body language and your way that you process things differently in a brothel. So all that has to be changed. You have to unlearn everything. So that's what life skill does. And then you get into livelihood training. And again, we ensure that people get into livelihood training based on their aptitude. So today, among our children, if some of my children are doing medicine, they're doing pharmacy, they are lawyers, they are professionals in multinational companies. My adult women are working as security guards, they're working as carpenters, they're working as welders, they're working as gym trainers, they're working as television camera persons. So a whole plethora of possibilities is open for them. But do they recover fully? I don't think so. It's an ongoing process. It is a whole, for years it goes on. But the moment you start feeling that, yes, this person is now, and one of the main things that we do in our safe space is to ensure that they learn to deal with rejection. They learn to deal with social attitude and perception. So we've been very clear with our people that don't think that the world is going to be, thing. And so you have to be prepared for that. So, when the person is ready, again, as the person comes through a court order to us, the person leaves through a court order from us. And so today, thousands of children and young women are living a very independent, dignified life outside at their terms and conditions.
And so we're here in Yerevan, and just to conclude, I suppose this is part of the advocacy side of and the awareness raising side of your job is what you're doing here, speaking to me now. For people who are listening, who want to help you in your work, what are the best ways that they could support you, support your cause, support your organization?
I think I would request everybody who's listening to me now to support the cause more than support me. I think cause is bigger than me. So and supporting my cause means you have to start with your own families. I think it's high time we started to engage with men and boys. And it starts, each one of us have to start with our own families. Because today, more than ever, we need to start questioning and confronting why are men buying children from brothels, and why do men seek paid sex with children and young adults. So, and I personally believe that safety of women doesn't lie with the women, it lies with the attitude of men. And until and unless that doesn't change, nothing can change. I can bring in many more legislations, because a person like me dreams of a day when I can close my organization. I don't dream of a day when I can sustain this organization forever. I don't want this kind of organizations to be there in the world. And that can only happen by when each one of us, and each one of the wonderful people who are listening to this podcast take a decision and say, I will be a different parent. I will be a different girlfriend. I will be a different boyfriend, and I will start in my own little world to start, confronting these things. Something as simple as porn, viewing porn. Do you realize that it kind of triggers and generates a demand for paid sex? And because of the demand, there is somebody somewhere there who's getting sold for it. So, see the connections, see your involvement in the problem, see how you are contributing to the problem by your silence, by your inaction in your local spaces.
The change starts with the individual.
That. Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. Good luck.
Thank you.
I'll be following your work, and everyone will be following work, and I'll post a link to your organization as well on the website. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Well, huge thank you to Sunitha, not just for talking to me, but for her work and for her life's work and for her commitment to this cause, which is so important and so valuable. And just thank you. And I'll post a link to Prajwala on the website, as I said. And if you are listening to this episode somewhat contemporaneously, you've probably heard an ad from the Aurora Humanitarian Initiative saying that nominations for the 2019 Aurora Humanitarian Prize are now open. So visit auroraprize.com to see how you can nominate someone. Now we'll see you later. Bye.